JBNN will keep you informed. I'm Michelle Jones. Hi guys. Before we go into the news, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and to share the news with someone today. Now on to the news. Savlamar PNP council caretaker concerned with crime rate in her division. Following Wednesday night's shooting of 4 people as they were leaving a Valentine's Day function at a bar, People's National Party PNP council caretaker for the Savlamar division, Julian Chang, is expressing concern about the state of crime which he said has haunted her division. According to the police, 4 people were shot outside the bar and were rushed to the hospital where they are undergoing treatment. It is understood that one of the victims, who reportedly got shot in her abdomen, is employed at the bar. I want to express my sympathies to the families of the persons who have been shot. It is really a sad time for Savlamar. Within the last 3 weeks, we have had a similar encounter, Chang said on Thursday afternoon. Chang said one of the victims, who is known to her, is unconscious and is in a serious state. One of the persons who was shot is one of my former employees, and I understand that she's in a critical condition, and she's also a member of my division, a distraught Chang said. She said a similar incident 3 weeks ago also left more than 3 people in her division wounded after they were shot up at a party. We have really been haunted by the spate of crime in Savlamar, she stressed. She has pledged to coordinate meetings with the relevant stakeholders and other necessary discussions surrounding the crime plague in the business hub. One vendor, who plans to trade in the township, said that she's scared and opts to close her small business earlier than usual. Me not feel good about the shootings. Me afraid me have to go in earlier, sometimes 7 or 8, the vendor said on condition of anonymity. She said before the shootings she would stay overnight in the town as she tried to make a living, but her hours have been shortened since. Every day it gets worse, the vendor bemoaned. Meanwhile, one resident said that the 15 years maximum sentence that criminals are slapped with is not sufficient. Me no like wagwan, too much killing, that's why me not really come out, the elderly man said. He said back in his time he could have stayed out all night, but not now. It is for that reason he suggested that the government apply harsher penalties to perpetrators of crime. The government must put up more resistance when they kill them. For you catch a man with a gun, you just put him away. Them not come back a road, cause as them come back at them that again, he stressed. 61-year-old Clarendon man charged with murder. The Lioneltown police in Clarendon have charged a 61-year-old man for the stabbing death of a farmer during an argument in Cockpit District on Monday. Charged with murder is Michael Foster. His court date is being finalized. He's accused of killing 61-year-old Bonita Stewart, otherwise called Mickey Mouse, a farmer of Cockpit District in Lioneltown. The police report that about 6:30 p.m. on Monday, February 12, Stewart and Foster got into an argument. The argument escalated and Foster used a kitchen knife to stab Stewart several times before fleeing the scene. On Tuesday, February 13, at about 6:30 a.m., a police team visited the scene and found Foster. He was subsequently arrested and charged. 2 arrested following deadly shooting in Naggohead, St. Catherine. 2 people are in police custody. Following the shooting death of a man, was being identified so far only by his alias Chip in Naggohead, St. Catherine on Tuesday. Senior Superintendent Christopher Phillips, head of the St. Catherine South Police Division, has lauded the actions of the police in responding to the incident.
What was good about the encounter was that there was immediate police response and the culprit is in our custody now. At least 2 persons, and we hope to advance the investigation, very robustly. The community was most upset because that era of Naggohead, since of late, we have been seeing, some amount of calm in the Casanova era. We have to step outside the box in how we treat with this because it is destroying our country. I am calling for stronger leadership to deal with this kind of issue. There are far too many cases where persons are staying overseas and ordering hits on persons in communities, and it is destroying our country. And it must stop, and we must find a way to reach those persons and bring some of these persons to books. And I'm seeing it, and I'm speaking from experience, what is coming to me as a commander. I'm not making up any stories. I'm seeing the trends. And I'm saying that it is an issue that requires serious attention.
Police launch investigation after gun and ammo found under sink in Olympic Gardens. Lawmen assigned to the St. Andrew South Police Division seized the gun and the several rounds of ammunition found under a sheet of zinc at a house in Olympic Gardens. Reports from the Olympic Gardens police are that about 4:10 p.m. on Wednesday, a team of officers was on operation on Wint Road, Kingston 11, when they conducted a search of a premises. During the search, one Glock 9mm pistol fitted with a magazine containing 5 9mm rounds of ammunition was found at the rear of the premises under a sheet of zinc. The weapon was retrieved. No one was arrested in connection with the seizure. Investigations are ongoing. Vybz Kartel appeal hearing ends. Privy Council could rule in 3 to 4 months. The 2-day Privy Council hearing of the Vybz Kartel appeal ended Thursday in London. Thursday's hearing focused again on the jury issues. It became clear on Wednesday that this is a primary concern of the judges and will likely be the main issue influencing their decision. The questions are whether the juror who tried to bribe the 4 women should have been discharged from the jury, as the attempted bribery could have biased the jury against the defendants, as well as whether the jury being sent to retire to decide on their verdict about 20 minutes before the usual end of the court day was too late in the day and to put pressure on them to reach a verdict. British King's Counsel Peter Knox, representing the government, argued Thursday that the trial judge had a discretion to send the jury to retire at any time. He said the trial judge gave directions to the jury that would have addressed any possible bias on their part and that juries must be trusted to do their jobs. He said in any case, the evidence was so strong that the risk of bias was not an issue and that the verdict was fair. He argued that if the court disagreed, the case should have been sent back to the Jamaican Court of Appeal for them to decide if there should be a retrial. In response, British King's Counsel, Hugh Southey for the appellants, said the trial judge's direction to the jury were not adequate. He said where one juror had already been let go and another tried bribery, the jury's verdict could not be valid. He suggested if bribery creates a problem for the Jamaican justice system, the solution is to amend the law, as the British have done, so a case can continue with the judge alone. He argued that a new trial should not be ordered since Kartel's high profile and the length of time since the first trial would mean a fair trial is no longer possible. The Privy Council is expected to rule in 3 to 4 months. Kartel, whose given name is Adidja Palmer, and 3 others were convicted on March 13, 2014 for the murder of Clive Lizard Williams. The other convicts are Sean Campbell, otherwise called Sean Storm, Kahira Jones, and Andre St. John, otherwise called Mad Sauce. St. Andrew music producer charged with murder. A 27-year-old St. Andrew music producer who was held at an airport trying to flee the country has been charged with murder and is to go to court next week. In addition to murder, Shaquille Hudson is also charged with illegal possession of a firearm and illegal possession of ammunition. He is scheduled to appear in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court on Thursday, February 22. Hudson was arrested at the Norman Manley International Airport on Tuesday, February 6, when he tried to leave the island. The charges stem from the Wednesday, December 29, 2021, shooting death of 23-year-old Troy Beckford. The police report that about 11:30 a.m., Beckford and Hudson were at a business establishment when an argument developed between them. A physical fight ensued and Hudson pulled a gun and shot and killed Beckford before escaping in the area, according to the police. He was on the run for years until last week when he was apprehended trying to leave the country. Government to table $1.3 trillion budget for 2024-2025 fiscal year. The government is proposing to spend $1.3 trillion for the 2024-2025 financial year, which starts on April 1. The figure is 19% above the $1.1 trillion approved for the current year that ends on March 31. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark tabled the new budget Thursday afternoon.
Madam Speaker, Jamaica's national budget is now firmly in the $1 trillion range, with total expenditure and payments for fiscal year 2024-25 estimated at $1.3 trillion. This is to be financed by revenue and grant receipts of $1 trillion and loan and other financing of $0.3 trillion. 0.3. It should be noted that the government has debt maturing of $317 billion this year, which is included in the expenditure figure above, as compared with $125 billion that matured last year. When you look at non-debt expenditure, however, at approximately $849.9 billion, this is 10.9% higher than the non-debt expenditure of $765.8 billion in the fourth supplementary estimates of 2023-24. The revenue expenditure profile program, Madam Speaker, generates the targeted positive fiscal balance of 0.3% of GDP as required under the recovery profile generated following the suspension of fiscal rules in fiscal year 2020-21. Contributing to the $1.3 trillion expenditure profile are non-debt recurrent expenditure of $769.9 billion, capital expenditure of $80 billion, and debt service of $491.2 billion. Non-debt recurrent expenditure includes allocation for recurrent program expenses at $327.8 billion, as well as compensation expenses at $442 billion. The compensation allocation includes an estimated amount to conclude the implementation phase of the restructured compensation system during the fiscal year. Madam Speaker, wages and salaries are projected to represent 12.6% of GDP in 24-25. Madam Speaker, and this is up from 9.2% of GDP in 2019/20. And it must be noted that the amount budgeted for public sector compensation for 2024-25 exceeds actual compensation for 2021-22, the year before the compensation restructuring began, by approximately $200 billion. It is obvious, Madam Speaker, that the government has made a concerted effort to address historical challenges with public sector compensation, and now it is time to consolidate. As a country, we need to be careful to ensure that sufficient resources are left for growth-inducing capital expenditure, for programs that can enhance Jamaica's human capital, and for social expenditure on behalf of more vulnerable members of the Jamaican society. The capital expenditure of $80 billion includes an allocation to commence implementation of the SPARK program during fiscal year 24-25, and allocations to continue the ongoing CAPEX programs that are outlined in the Public Sector Investment Program. Improving human capital is a major theme in the allocation of CAPEX this year, Madam Speaker. The capital expenditure budget includes allocations for the most comprehensive health infrastructure improvement since our independence. Madam Speaker, approximately $11 to $12 billion is being allocated for the modernization of the Spanish Town Hospital, the continued construction of the new Western Children's and Adolescent Hospital, the rehabilitation of Cornwall Regional Hospital, as well as the upgrades to the Maypen and St. Anne's Bay hospitals and the Greater Portmore and St. Jago Park health centers, among other CAPEX expenditures in the Ministry of Health. Debt service includes $173.8 billion for interest payments and $317 billion for the repayment of debts that are maturing. The repayment of debts that are maturing, otherwise known as amortization payments, represent an increase of 128.9% over fiscal year 23-24, primarily due to the large maturities on both domestic and external portfolios, and those would have been programmed at the time those debts were entered into several years ago, and in some cases more than a decade ago. This House will recall that a large chunk of the maturing debt was pre-financed at low interest rates through Jamaica's entry into the resilience and sustainability financing with the IMF. Planning in advance. Loan financing, Madam Speaker, is therefore programmed at $191 billion, and combined with the significant amortization amount, will contribute to a net reduction in the debt as we continue to work towards achievement of the legislative debt-to-GDP target of 60% or less. The House is asked to note that the revenue estimates tabled today reflect the 2023-24 original budget position, Although we have indicated revisions to the estimated revenue alongside tabling of the supplementary estimates during the year, due to the revised estimates not being prepared at the detail level required for the annual budget. So the revenue estimates that are tabled today are the original revenue estimates in March of last year. They would have been revised upwards in subsequent supplementaries. The self-financing public bodies are programmed to achieve an overall balance surplus of $34.4 billion in the upcoming fiscal year, and this is generated from the operations of 53 public bodies. The self-financing program public bodies are programmed to undertake $96.4 billion in capital expenditure during the year, mainly through the National Housing Trust at $50.7 billion, the National Water Commission at $10.8 billion, the Port Authority at $7.9 billion, Airports Authority at $4.7 billion, Petrojam at $3.6 billion, and the Housing Agency of Jamaica at $3.2 billion. Madam Speaker, the House is asked to note that between the central government and the the self-financing public bodies, capital expenditure for fiscal year 2024-25 is programmed at $176.4 billion, or 5.4% of GDP. This represents a 1.6 percentage point increase in capital expenditure as a percentage of GDP over the estimated 23-24 outturn, and demonstrates the government's effort towards improving the economic growth of the country and facilitating the associative positive secondary effects of development advances on the country's. Madam Speaker, debt to GDP is on track for 72.2% by March 31st, 2023, lower than the 74% previously targeted, and is projected to be, Madam Speaker, 67.2% by March 31st of 2025. Madam Speaker, if achieved, this will be the lowest debt ratio in well over 40 years. This year, the debt ratio is in the region of the pre-FinSAC levels, Madam Speaker, and if we are to achieve the program execution this year, as outlined, it will be the lowest in over 40 years, and I will get the precise year when debt was that low in the past. In concluding, Madam Speaker, details on allocations under the fiscal year 24-25 budget will be provided during my budget presentation on March 12th of 2024.
JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.